Black Sabbath versus Deep Purple versus Led Zeppelin.
Led Zeppelin. Yeah, I did bring
And,
that up.
Led Zeppelin members would be the first to say, we're not heavy metal. All right.
Right.
A lot of Led Zeppelin fans would be the first to say, they're not heavy metal. All right. And I think the reason is ultimately they wound up after their second album paying as much attention to a softer side, a more eloquent side than other bands recognized as heavy metal. So, first of all, Black Sabbath. Many people say Paranoid is the first heavy metal album. I never understood that because the first album is as heavy as the second, but maybe it's because it got recognized much more. I don't know. But yes, Black Sabbath is heavy metal. Now, for Deep Purple, for me, Deep Purple is what I call progressive metal. All right. There are shards of almost a Yes, okay, or a King Crimson approach to where they would go, thanks to John Lord and his training and Ritchie Blackmore's ability to do everything that John Lord could do. They really developed a sound. So I consider them progressive metal. Now, Led Zeppelin, I just consider, like the Beatles, just, the greatest band of the 70s, and the Beatles are the greatest band in the 60s, and both bands played in a lot of sandboxes. But when Led Zeppelin, and you mentioned Communication Breakdown earlier.
Yes.
I would also include A Whole Lot of Love. When I heard A Whole Lot of Love, it blew my freaking mind, right? If that isn't heavy metal, would you please tell me what heavy metal is?
That is absolutely heavy metal. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry for the F-bomb there, but
I don't know that there was ever a song bigger than Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
It plays nonstop.
And it's got it all because it's as much a psychedelic song as it is heavy metal. So you were talking about In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, psychedelic and heavy metal.
Psychedelic and heavy metal, correct.
And here's Led Zeppelin playing in, their sandbox. Was there not? See, this is why the Beatles and Led Zeppelin are my two favorite bands of all time. Third being Pink Floyd for other reasons. But even Pink Floyd, these two bands went the gambit. They went the gambit. And yes, Royce, you're absolutely correct. I consider Helter Skelter rock and roll's first true heavy metal band. You add that to Revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. The single, not the one on the White Album, which is a softer take, which only shows you how great that song really is. John putting out Instant Karma while he was still with the Beatles. So we almost felt like that was an honorary Beatle. I remember. I go, it's just John, but that's a Beatle track,
Right.
And the heavy metal approach on acoustic pianos on that. So when people say that the Beatles were merely a pop band, they could be merely a pop band, merely the best pop band to ever exist, mind you.
Right.
But they could be that. At times, they played that role. But you couldn't pigeonhole them any more than Jimmy Page would allow Led Zeppelin to be pigeonholed. It was his driving force, but also his willing empowerment of the other three members to his equal status. He embraced their talents and got what he could from them. Speaking of Black Sabbath, now, Led Zeppelin encouraged everyone to be in the writing process, but usually it was him and Robert. Beatles encourage everyone, begrudgingly, to be in the writing process, but usually it was Lennon
John
and McCartney.
Yeah.
But now
George had a pretty big catalog of stuff that they just kept passing over, Right.
But Black Sabbath, though, Royce, think about this. They they had the riff master, Tony, who would come up with the riffs, the chord
Right.
progressions,
Right.
right? And then they had Ozzy, who would sing nonsense into the mic to develop the melody.
Right.
And then their bassist, Geezer Butler, for the most part, would write the lyrics based around a melody.
Right.
So talk about a lopsided yet somehow perfect songwriting arrangement, you know?
Right. Right.
Amazing. And sometimes they wrote all
they are
together
amazing.
too, you know? And their musicianship is underrated, okay? But think about who they're contending with. You know, Tony has to contend with Jimmy Page, you know, Jeff Beck, Carlos Santana, Richie Blackmore. All right. Is he on their level? No. But I'd say he's in the top 15 of rock. All right.
But he was a little handicapped too, you know.
Oh, and then when you take that into consideration, he has plastic tips on his fingers.
Cut them off in an industrial accident. Yeah, it was a machine shop or something where he was working.
And he built those himself. He didn't go to some special hospital and specialists developed fingertips for him.
Right.
No, he just worked plastic and put them on what was left of his fingers, right?
Yeah.
So when you consider that, he has to go up, right?
Then he has to go. That's absolutely amazing. I mean,
and then the drummer was fantastic. Geezer was a great bass player, but were they on the level of a John Bonham or an Ian Pace or a John Paul Jones or a McCartney? No, they weren't. So they get it's with Black Sabbath, it's the total approach. And somehow they come out as great a band as Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple to most fans. Most fans would just say, yeah, those are the three, man. I love them. You know, from that time period, fans from that time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.